Hey guys, if you're enjoying the content I've been putting up, be sure to subscribe so you always know when a new video pops up. Now that we got that part out of the way, let's get into the video. Final Fantasy XIV is a massive game with thousands of hours of content. What I'm going to do here is break down some of the major plot points for those of you who want to know more about Eorzea, but may not have time to experience it all firsthand. This time, we're jumping into part 2 of our MSQ recap for Shadowbringers. After the Warrior of Light wakes from her nap, she heads back to the Exarch to move forward with the task of tracking down the Scions. He whips out a map to give you a view of all the surrounding lands that haven't been destroyed by the flood, so he can point out where your friends are located. Eorzea is to the north in the fairy kingdom of Ilmeg. Y'shtola is to the east in the land that once held the civilization of Rak'tika, two places that aren't all that easy to reach. Eorzea and Alphinaud are a lot closer. Alphinaud is on the island of Kalusia, near the city of Yulmore, a place that only allows the rich and powerful to live in it. He went there to try to form an alliance to work against the Sin Eaters, but who knows how well that's going. Eorzea is in the south in Amarang, right on the edge of where the flood had been stopped. The place is constantly under attack by Sin Eaters, so it's only right that you'd find her in the most dangerous of places. She wanted to learn more about the monsters, so she's been hiring herself out as a bodyguard for anyone who needs her. Thancred is a little more difficult to find since he's been wandering around with a new friend, taking down Sin Eaters all over the place. The Warrior of Light decides to go after Eorzea first, because she had been distraught when she'd been snatched away. Apparently she'd made that fact known to the Exarch, and he hopes sending you to her will make her forgive him at least a little bit. He gives you a letter for a merchant named Cassard who will be pointing you in the right direction. Cassard gives you a ride out to the desert outpost and lets you know that Eorzea has been staying at the inn at Journey's Head, but he's got some business to take care of at Mord Soup before he can take you there. The place is another refuge for people who were displaced by the flood. Cassard introduces you to a few of the Mord who are just kobolds, and tells you that if you want the people to trust you, you have to spend a bit of money. The Exarch sent a bit to cover your expenses, and when Cassard whips it out, the people swarm you wanting you to spend it with them. Since they know you're loaded, you become an instant friend. After trying some food and nearly dying, Cassard sends you with Tesleen, who not only knows where Eorzea is, but she's already heard a lot about you. She's more than happy to bring you to the inn. The place is a bit more run down than other inns you've seen. In fact, it's more of a hole in a mountain wall than an inn at all. It's where people who have been infected by Sin Eaters and the people who take care of them stay. And Eorzea, of course, who at the moment is out scouting around for Sin Eaters to stab, so you head out to track her down. You spot a Sin Eater flying around before you see Eorzea jump off of a plateau that definitely should have killed her, before she shows off her Red Mage skills and takes the creature down. Red Mage is the best mage, so I can understand why she chose that job. She's happy to see you, but she does wish you had made it there sooner. You fill her in on how things have gone on the source with the war, and she wants nothing more than to go back home, but even if she could, she wouldn't until she dealt with the Sin Eaters. While the regular Sin Eaters are dangerous, the stronger ones can affect your ether and cause you to transform into one of them yourself. Once the change starts, there's no stopping it as far as they know, and once it's done, you become a mindless beast fueled only by hunger for ether. They're even worse than Voidson in the way that you can't even make a pact with them. They don't listen to reason, they just eat ether. The people who are infected are sent away to die or turn alone in the land near where the flood stopped. It's been a good place for Eorzea to learn about the Eaters and practice fighting them, both the ones that show up and the people who turn. That's knowledge that she shares with you while you're on patrol with her. When you finish and return to the inn, Tesleen tells you how much Eorzea talked about you, something she denies in typical Eorzea fashion. She sends the two of you to Mord Soup to gather supplies, and after you get them, Eorzea takes you up a hill so you can see the large crack in the wall of light. It lets you see the land beyond that had been destroyed by the flood. The Empty, a place where the light ether is so strong that it'll start to kill you just by standing in it for too long. There's nothing she can do about that, any more than she can help Haurik, the little boy who's been infected by a Sin Eater and staying at the inn, the one who's probably going to turn any day now. In a normal world, people's ether would return to normal over time, but with the first being the way that it is, their ether steadily moves in the opposite direction until they become Sin Eaters. Even though Tesleen and the others know this, they still try to make the people at the inn comfortable until it's time to put them down, usually by putting poison in their favorite food. It's sad really, but there's nothing to be done. But that doesn't mean Eorzea doesn't plan on trying. Back at the inn, Tesleen prepares dinner for everyone, but she notices that Haurik is gone, which is strange since his infection is so advanced that he doesn't do much of anything. With so many sin eaters in the area, you need to find them fast, especially since a really big one with a sword flies overhead. The thing looks so dangerous that Eorzea decides it should be taken down before it kills anyone, so the two of you follow it only to see it flying right at Halric. It goes in to kill him, but Tesleen attacks it only to get run through by its sword. Then in a horribly gruesome scene, she transforms into a sin eater right in front of your eyes. This was probably one of the creepiest things I've seen in a while, especially with the way Halric just stares at her, his face void of all emotion as she screams in agony while her body contorts and mutates. When the transformation is done, she flies off after her murderer while using her last words to apologize to Eorzea. After losing her friend, Eorzea decides to head back to the Crystarium to discuss a plan for wiping the Sin Eaters out entirely. Since she's back, you head out to Eorzea to track down Alphinaud. You hitch a ride on an Amuro out to Eorzea and catch sight of the city of Eulmore off in the distance. In the past, it was an ally to the Crystarium in the fight against the Sin Eaters, but over the years the elite of the city labeled themselves the Masters of the First and offer protection to other settlements if they submit to their will. And the things they ask their subordinates to do are a bit insane sometimes. The Crystarium, of course, refuses to bow down to them, and while the two nations aren't at war exactly, they're not friends anymore. Meaning you shouldn't let people know that you're friends with the Exarch while you're there. They may cause themselves to die by trying to mess with you. The Exarch has a spy named Ivor who lives in the area and watches things, so he should be able to help you find Alphinaud. When you find him, he lets you know where the young Ellison should be, so you head to the spot and wait. As luck would have it, Alphinaud does show up there after not too long. He's happy to see you since it's been so long, and after the two of you get caught up, he brings up Urianger's vision and what needs to be done to change it. The way he described all of your deaths seems a lot like they used the bioweapon Black Rose. Since Alphinaud saw the effects firsthand when he traveled with Gaius, he's well aware of how dangerous the weapon would be if used, and if it got out of control, it could in fact kill everyone. Working with the Exarch, Alphinaud and the others have come up with a theory on how the rejoining might get started. It requires both the Source and the First to be on the brink of destruction, and with the Sin Eater threat on the First, one of the worlds is already pretty close to being wiped out. Alphinaud refuses to sit by and let people suffer at the hands of the monsters, which is why he came to Eulmore. While the people may be unpleasant, it is a seat of power. There has to be something inside of the city that can help figure out what to do. But you can't just walk in. It'll take a bit of work, but Alphinaud is excited to once again be doing some adventuring with you. Despite being in Eorzea for so long, he's yet to make it into the city. Together the two of you head out so he can show you exactly why. While you walk, you hear an old lady scream. She's getting attacked by a Sin Eater, but lucky for her, you get there in time to save her. She doesn't want to leave her house, and she doubts the people of Eulmore would actually let someone her age in, but she would be safer trying with all of the Sin Eater attacks around where she lives. A lot of people have abandoned their homes to live outside of Eulmore, since there aren't many people around with the strength to fight off the creatures. Even though the area isn't nearly as dangerous as Amarang, it still has more than enough of the creatures to kill anyone who isn't prepared. Alphinaud takes you to a place called Gate Town right outside of Eulmore, where people live with the hope of being chosen to enter the city. Lucky for you, two oddly dressed women show up with bags of food to announce what type of person they want in the city right when you get there. Apparently a rich woman has a taste for some top-notch seafood, so they're out looking for a master culinarian who can do the job. On a side note, these two ladies remind me of Queen Braun's attendants Zorn and Thorn from Final Fantasy IX, which, considering how the leader of Eulmore is about the same size as Princess Garnet's mother, that may have been what they were going for. Apparently Eulmore is also known as the City of Final Pleasures, where the rich gather to live in luxury during the rest of their lives while they ignore everything else that happened in the world. It's basically Las Vegas if only rich people were allowed to live there, and the only way average people could get through the gates is if they were entertainment. They did at least bring food for the people, so there is that. It's called Mio, and the way the people acted when they started handing it out means it must be delicious. But the fact that the selfish citizens of Eulmore give the Mio out to the peasants so freely makes Alphinaud a little uneasy. All the more reason to figure out a way to get into that city so you can find out exactly what goes on in there. Of course, Alphinaud's been working on a plan to get inside because there's no way he would have sat around for all this time doing nothing. He reached out to the Ondo, a nearby beast tribe, and found out that they really like fruits grown on the surface, and they're willing to trade them for pearls. The return on investment would be phenomenal, so any Eulmoran lord would love to get in on that deal once it's finalized. and he is doing that in just a few hours. And of course he wants you to come with him. While you head off to go pick up the supplies for the meeting, you miss the fact that someone was hiding behind a building eavesdropping. When you go to pick up the produce for the Ondo trade, you find out that your eavesdropping friend has already picked up your stuff, claiming that he worked for you. After the woman describes him, it doesn't take long for you to track him down. The two of you hunt down the young Mikode, but instead of beating him up and taking your stuff back, you listen to his sob story. His name is Kashir, and he's desperate to get into the city. All of his friends are already inside, and he doesn't have anyone else. He's not even been able to get the Miol when it's handed out. Since he has no real talent of his own, he figured if he stole Alphino's idea, then that would be enough to get him into the city. He could of course go to the Crystarium, but since his friends are all in Eulmore, he doesn't want to go anywhere else. Being the guy who always tries to help everyone else, Alphino decides to not only let Kashir take his idea, he explains it all to him. Of course that means the two of you will have to come up with another way to get into the city. The two of you start to head back to the town where you found Alphino so you can come up with a plan when he spots a man sprawled out near the shoreline looking half dead. You rush over to him to find out that he's still alive, but barely. He was an artist in Eulmore, brought in by a couple that wanted pictures painted of them, but they didn't like his style so they fired him, leaving him broken without a patron. Lord Vothrid, the leader of the city, asked him what did he plan on doing to fix the situation. Since he had no ideas, he offered to leave the city, so Vothrid threw him over the side. He only survived by pure luck, and to make matters worse, the people of the city didn't see anything wrong with what Vothrid did. They go along with anything he says without complaint, no matter how cruel it is. This only makes Alphino more determined to get into the city, and since you saved him, Trystal is more than willing to help you do it, even though he wouldn't want to send his worst enemy behind those walls. And that's where we're going to stop for today. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up, and make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out on the next part of the story.